the world woke up to gripping headlines. Tensions explode in South China Sea. China and Philippines face off at Scarborough Shoal. News anchors cut to live feeds. Gray waves, white ships, flashing lights. On screen, Philippine Coast Guard vessels hovered near the blue-green lagoon. Chinese maritime militia ships, larger and more numerous, loomed nearby. Overhead, a drone buzzed, capturing the dance of steel and salt water. The drama unfolded in real time. Radios crackled with urgent commands in Tagalog, Mandarin, and English. Reporters in raincoats shouted into microphones, voices nearly drowned out by the surf. We can see Coast Guard crews preparing for a clearing operation. Tensions are high, one journalist declared, her face tense against the wind. The world watched, waiting for the next move. In Manila and Beijing, government spokespeople read statements to packed press rooms. "We are defending our sovereignty," said the Philippines. "We are protecting our territory," countered China. The standoff was not just about ships, but about pride, power, and the future of the South China Sea. The scene was set for a confrontation that would echo far beyond the shoal itself. Scarborough Shoal is a triangle-shaped chain of rocks and reefs, just 120 nautical miles from the Philippine coast, much closer to Luzon than China. Its lagoon teems with marine life, supporting local fishermen for centuries. China claims it as Huangyan Dao, part of its 9-dash line. The Philippines calls it Panatag, inside its exclusive economic zone. Control means access to rich fisheries, energy, and a strategic position. For both nations, Scarborough Shoal is a symbol of sovereignty and pride. In recent weeks, the Philippine Coast Guard launched clearing operations at Scarborough Shoal. Their goal: remove barriers and structures placed by China to block Filipino fishermen. At dawn, small boats approached the floating barriers. Crews in orange vests worked quickly, cutting ropes and dragging obstacles into their own vessels. Each action was watched by Chinese ships, some just meters away. The Chinese Coast Guard responded with loudspeakers and water cannons. "Leave immediately," they warned in Mandarin and English. The Philippine crews pressed on. At times, Chinese vessels tried to block their way, steering dangerously close. Tensions soared. Radios buzzed with reports of near collisions. The risk of miscalculation was real. On shore, officials in Manila monitored every move. The clearing operation was broadcast on Philippine TV, hailed as an act of courage. In Beijing, state media denounced the effort as provocation. For days, the world watched live feeds from the shoal, waiting for one side to back down, or for tempers to boil over. Both countries fought hard to shape the world's view of the standoff. Chinese officials repeated a familiar line: "Scarborough Shoal has always been China's territory." They accused the Philippines of illegally entering Chinese waters and endangering regional stability. Chinese state television showed Coast Guard ships protecting fishermen and defending Chinese sovereignty. The Philippines painted a different picture. Manila pointed to international law. In 2016, an international tribunal ruled in favor of the Philippines, declaring China's claims had no legal basis. Philippine leaders called the clearing operation a peaceful effort to restore Filipino fishermen's rights. "We are not the aggressors," insisted one spokesperson. "We are simply standing up for what is ours." Media in both countries echoed their government's stance. Social media erupted with hashtags. "Defend the West, Philippine Sea" trended in Manila, while hashtag "Protect Huangyan Dao" surged in Beijing. The battle for hearts and minds was fierce, with each side trying to win not just the seabed, but the story itself. Beneath the politics, real people faced real risks. Filipino fishermen from Zambales and Pangasinan depended on Scarborough Shoal for their daily catch. "If we can't fish here, our children go hungry," said Mang Ramon, who had braved these waters for decades. On the other side, Chinese fishing crews also worked the lagoon. "We have always come to Huangyan Dao. It is our home." Both Chinese and Filipino fishermen spoke of intimidation and fear. The tension touched every life that depended on the sea. Day after day, the standoff grew more intense. Chinese ships increased in number, sometimes circling Philippine boats. The air was thick with anxiety. Filipino crews kept cameras rolling, documenting every close encounter. At times, the Chinese used powerful water cannons to drive boats away. The blasts sent spray 40 feet in the air, knocking fishermen off their feet. The Philippine Coast Guard used loudspeakers of their own. "This is Philippine territory. You are violating our EEZ." Voices echoed across the water, firm but tense. On deck, crew members wore body armor and helmets, unsure if words might turn to action. Some raised flags, hoping their colors would deter aggression. Others just clenched their fists and waited. Locals on the Philippine coast watched news updates with growing worry. Social media lit up with calls for support, prayers, and protests. In Beijing, people reposted videos of the standoff, calling for their government to stand firm. Every day, new rumors and reports fueled the fire. The world's eyes stayed fixed on the narrow blue line between peace and war. For those on the water, the standoff was not just politics, it was daily life. Filipino fishermen rose before dawn, their boats loaded with ice, nets, and hope. They navigated past Coast Guard patrols, always on the lookout for trouble. "We fish quickly and leave quickly," said Mang Ramon. "We watch the horizon. If we see Chinese ships, we run." The Coast Guard crews lived on high alert. Meals were quick, sleep was rare. Every hour brought a new challenge: a blocked channel, a warning from loudspeakers, a sudden maneuver from another ship. Crews worked in shifts, scanning radar screens and binoculars. "We know a single mistake could be dangerous," said Officer Santos. "But we stay calm, we follow orders." On the Chinese side, life was just as tense. Fishermen and Coast Guard officers rotated in and out of the shoal, bracing for confrontation. "We are far from home, but we must do our job," said one crewman. Supplies came by ship, and news from the outside world was rare. Every day felt like a test of nerves and endurance. The standoff did not unfold in a vacuum. Across Southeast Asia, governments watched with unease. Vietnam, Malaysia, and Indonesia worried about similar disputes in their own waters. The United States issued statements supporting the Philippines, reminding China of international law. American and Allied warships increased patrols nearby, a show of force and solidarity. China warned against external interference, accusing outsiders of stirring up trouble. Beijing's diplomats met with ASEAN leaders, urging dialogue and restraint. But tensions remained high. In Manila, thousands joined rallies, waving flags and demanding action. In Beijing, nationalist voices grew louder, calling for a strong response. Global markets shuddered at every new headline. Energy companies paused exploration plans as risk escalated. The South China Sea shipping lanes, vital for world trade, suddenly seemed less secure. The ripples from Scarborough Shoal traveled far, touching everything from politics to prices at the gas pump. As the world watched, the Scarborough Shoal standoff entered a new, uncertain phase. Both sides reinforced their presence, but neither wanted open conflict. Diplomats searched for ways to ease the tension. Some suggested joint patrols or shared access for fishermen. Others called for new talks under ASEAN or the United Nations. But trust was thin. Fishermen wondered if they would ever fish in peace again. Coast Guard crews braced for another day of uncertainty. Leaders in Manila and Beijing weighed their next moves carefully, aware that a single misstep could trigger something bigger. The fate of Scarborough Shoal is not just about a patch of sea. It is about law, pride, and power in Asia's most contested waters. The world waits to see if reason will prevail, or if the standoff will spark a new crisis. For now, the blue horizon at Scarborough Shoal remains a line drawn in water and in history.